Greetings guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette and this is my channel, Evolve with Monette. I am so happy to have you joining me today. We're going to be doing a bit of a different video where I'm going to be using these visual aids in front of me to get into the subject of covert narcissism. Period. We're going to talk about that in general, but also talk about how it manifested itself in a workspace or office space for some of you that are dealing with that situation. I will tie in some of my observations of working with or being involved with a covert narcissist in friendship, relationship, and understanding how their mind works. So we're going to decode this so that you can start to understand. What I found with covert narcissism is that it is very insidious compared to the malignant narc. You see them coming a mile away. So for those of you here new to my channel, again, my name is Monette and I'm a professional intuitive empath and apparently lately the narcissist whisperer. So I am going to take us into the deep depths of the brain of the covert narc. Specifically today, I'll do another video about the malignant narc, but I wanted to talk about how this manifests itself in office spaces. So we know that this term narcissist is getting thrown around a lot. Everybody's talking about it. We are starting to realize that here's the thing, guys, we all have our own narcissism. So that's something I want to acknowledge here. We all can be a bit narcissistic. And in order to be human beings existing, we are living in narcissism. There is a certain level to us where we are having to take care of ourselves and having to be selfish. But it overcorrects when we're dealing with narcissists. So when you're dealing with any narcissistic personality disorder, these people seem a little bit self-centered or so focused on their own importance that they've lost touch with reality, or they don't care about other people, or they seem manipulative to get what they want. But there's a really broad spectrum when you're dealing with NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, and it involves a range of potential traits. So covert narcissism usually involves fewer external signs of the classic NPD. So that would be your malignant narc, who would be a classic, and the people that are covert narcs are more shy. People still meet this criteria for this diagnosis, but have traits that are usually not really associated with narcissism. And that's what makes this insidious and hard to kind of catch. So there is shyness that is there. There is humility and there is sensitivity to what others think. The covert narcissist in my life definitely seemed aloof and maybe even snobby to other people, but she had deep, what's the word? She had deep social anxiety. I do believe that that was real. She had deep social anxiety and she had an extreme sensitivity to what other people thought of her, which was really interesting because she spent a lot of time tearing everybody around her down. She didn't like anybody in her office. She didn't like anybody really in her family except for maybe a handful of people, and could find fault with everybody, could find fault with people's vehicles, homes, and the way they live their life. But mind you, don't you say a single word to her because she was so extremely sensitive. It was always perplexing to me. She would come into my home and opine about what it was too much of or too little of, but could not take any kind of commentary about her own home. She could never look in her own mess, and that is a trait of covert narcissism. The following signs also kind of point to covert narcissism, so I just want you to keep this in mind, that of course only a trained and qualified mental health professional can diagnose a mental health condition. The reason that I am fairly sure of what I was dealing with is because my father was a malignant narc who dealt with mental disorder as well, bipolar, extreme rage. I feel like she and my father were very similar, except that his was more malignant narcissism and hers is more covert. So it's something you can encourage your loved ones to kind of seek help with, but narcissists and people that deal with mental illnesses sometimes don't like to admit that this is a thing or aren't even aware. So just heads up, 7 up. So let's talk about that high sensitivity to criticism. Usually NPD involves insecurity and an easily damaged sense of a self-esteem or sense of self. But in covert narcissism, it manifests as extreme sensitivity to criticism. It's not unique for anybody with NPD. Most people don't love criticism. Guys, do you love when someone just comes up and tells you that you look ugly or they don't like your car or whatever? None of us really are like, yay, criticism, right? It was so much so that we've qualified it as, is it constructive or not, right? Because we're trying to temper even how we receive the criticism. So I want to be fair about that. We all have this trait to not love criticism. But when you're dealing with someone who has narcissistic sensitivity, they are really, really hyper tuned to criticism. People with covert narcissism might make dismissive or sarcastic remarks and act as if they're above criticism, but internally they might feel empty, humiliated, or even enraged. Narcissistic rage is something that I saw a lot with her, not just in our last moments together, but throughout the whole relationship. Her narcissistic rage. So if she's in an office place with somebody, she could come home and tell me about how somebody got a new vehicle, or somebody kid went to a certain school or got a certain thing, and she would talk about how all the women in her office were so judgmental and so horrible, but it was because she was judging them and in fear of them judging her, because she didn't feel like she was enough or had enough. She was embarrassed of herself and her life. I never understood why, because I thought you have a great life. That was me. But in her own mind, she was not feeling any of those things. So she would be in full meltdowns. If she went to a family gathering and a family member got a home or got a thing, she would literally be in a like a pit, not just a pity party. I think that's a little bit too light. She would go into full out narcissistic rage depression about why her life was the worst, why everybody else got things she didn't get. Well, that happened because she wasn't really willing to put in the work and the energy for it. But you can't tell a covert narcissist that, because they have zero accountability or introspection. Okay, so they feel humiliated and enraged. Criticism threatens their idealized view of themselves, guys. When they receive a critique, instead of admiration, they can take it pretty hard. In order for me to teach about what happened, I had to not be in her life whatsoever. She had to be dead to me in order for this to happen. Because as I tried to help her and walk her through as the empath that I am, I could tell that she had a lot of criticism. She made comments about myself, about my husband, about our dynamic. She made a lot of comments. She told me my mom looked old and decrepit. You couldn't say these things to her, because she would have lost her mind. And that is the trait of covert narcissism. Passive aggression is one of the other things that comes up here. So most people really use this manipulation tactic at one time or another, possibly even without realizing, guys. We all can be passive aggressive or sarcastic. Let's just be real about that. But with people with covert narcissism, use passive aggressive behavior to convey frustration or to make themselves look superior. She was obsessed with the fact that she was better than the women in her office, better than the boss in her office, better than any bosses she's ever had. Didn't know why she wasn't running companies or running things or being in charge. And to truth be told, she does have a very authoritative kind of energy, and I really thought she would, if she would step into her power, be fantastic at managing or running things. But it was always affected by her deep insecurities. So she wasn't able to really like step into herself. So the two main reasons for that behavior and needing to feel superior is a deep-seated belief in their specialness, and they believe that it entitles them to get what they want, and they desire to get back at people who wronged them or had greater success. The second one of that, wronging them and having greater success, that is precisely why we could not be around. That's precisely why she had to be dead to me spiritually, because she was starting to be really cruel and passive aggressive because she felt like I was successful, or she felt that I was gaining success. She didn't have any real idea, because I kept everything that was going on from her. That's another trait that you'll deal with narcissists of any stripe, covert or malignant. You will not want to share. You will instinctively not want to share the good that happens in your life because they're not happy for you. I supported her through everything. If she wanted to be a bus driver, I was like, girl, and that was a real thing. Okay. When she called me and said, I want to be a bus driver, I was like, I got you, son. I'll do whatever you need. I'll support you. When she wanted to be a bartender, I said, I'll pay for your school for you to do it. There wasn't anything that she bought to me as her friend that I did not edify and support. And there were moments where she would feed back into me. I'm not going to lie, guys. There were moments, because covert narcissists need supply. So she would give me a little breadcrumbing here and there. But as I started to actually get successful for real, she had a huge, super passive aggressive, deep down suppressed jealous problem with that I didn't realize until after she was like cutting my neck and stabbing me in the face. It took me a long time to be like, why doesn't she support me? Why isn't she caring that this is happening? Why does her son more invested than she is? Because she was a hater. And that's what covert narcissists are. They're haters. Okay. So, and here's why: that deep-seated belief in their specialness. They believe it entitles them to get what they want. In her life, I will tell you guys, from being on the inside, everybody catered to her bullshit. That's just the real truth of it. Everybody catered to it. Her family, because of her situation. Now, I will tell you, both of our parents passed away around the same time. And I want you to understand that, because it happened to me and it affected me in not great ways, and it caused me to manifest terrible relationships, to work out my patterning with my father, one of which was her. However, for her, she just used it to make everybody feel sorry for her. I feel terrible about what happened to her because I know the pain of losing a parent at that formative age in your young teenagehood and the devastation. I do not know the pain of what she went through. There was various things she went through. She was adopted, all of that stuff. But what she did was she learned how to hustle people. Now, this is something that I've talked to people that are that have adopted children, and the feedback, not everybody, but some feedback I've gotten from some folks in my life that have adopted children, is that if the thing is broken within that child at a certain age when you adopt them, you may be trying to deal with that or work that out for the rest of your life. And in some ways, even though her parents loved her, I do believe, I have my own personal qualms about that, but I believe that her parents actually did love her in the best capacity that they could. The parents that adopted her, I really do believe they loved her, and I'm glad she has them in her life. But what I will say is that I was watching Casey Anthony stuff recently, her doing some interviews, and I was listening to how George and Cindy interacted with her, and it, for like the first time in my life, the light bulb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, her parents are Casey Anthony's parents. They never made her be accountable for any of her BS. They saved her from everything, and they gifted her everything. That sense of entitlement was deeply pervasive. She felt like because she lost that parent, which, God, how many of us have lost parents, right? That she was entitled to special treatment, and she got it. She got it from me too. So let's just call a spade a spade. So and so the deep-seated there was an anger, that second part, a desire to get back to people who wronged them or had greater success. I had to get out of her energy because she started to be dangerous to me and started to want to like really play mental games with me, and was playing games with me. So this passive aggressive behavior can involve sabotaging someone's work or friendships. I have a video here coming up about a wasp totem. There was something that happened with a wasp that I connected to her, and then when my angel showed it, well, it was connected to her literally. It happened at her house. But I want you to understand, the wasp is about sabotaging friendship groups, okay? Specifically sabotaging relationships when they're going good, just wild behavior. I'll do that in another video. But sabotaging someone's work or friendships, teasing or mocking remarks framed as jokes. The silent treatment. This was her favorite. Okay, y'all? She thought this was so delicious. She loved it. Subtle blame shifting that makes other people feel bad or question what really happened. In the last 6 months, she was like, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with you. Here's why that happened, because I started to push back and hold her accountable for her shitty behavior. And it was shitty, guys. I started to hold her accountable for her passive aggression, for the fact that she was trying to triangulate me. She was trying to extract supply and vampiric energy from me because she wanted me to be jealous of her new relationship, and she was playing this other girl too, and it was a whole lot of, as Zoe would say. It was a whole lot of. So she started to blame shift and project and pretend as though I was doing things that she was 1000% doing. Procrastination on tasks they consider beneath them. Listen, there were moments in our life where she just decided she wouldn't do anything, and then all of us would coalesce around her and do it. Her son, her sister, myself. I remember one holiday dinner, she decided she wasn't going to cook. She pretended she was going to cook. She invited us to her house and said she was going to cook, and then she was like, so I'm not cooking, and we all did it. Now that's a light and little thing, but that is the way that it will manifest itself in people. It's like I will be crafty at getting my way, and that was just, we just were like, oh, that's just her. Guys, stop giving people that pass. That's just the way they are. I've been doing it since I was a teenager, dealing with these narcissists, not realizing that's just the way they are is a poor excuse for crappy behavior. We all can evolve and change. They choose not to. So they have a tendency to put themselves down when you're dealing with a covert narc. They have a need for admiration, so that's a key trait for any NPD. But this often leads people to boast about their achievements by exaggerating and outright lying. And so the psychologist that I was researching that talks about this, Maury Joseph, he said, this may be related to internal self-esteem issues. People with narcissism have to spend a lot of time making sure they don't have bad feelings feelings. They don't like to feel that they're imperfect or ashamed or limited or small. People with covert narcissism also rely on others to build up self-esteem, but instead of talking themselves up, they tend to put themselves down. Now, she would have what I would call come-aparts in her office. She calls them come-aparts. It was a new word to me. So what she would do is have emotional meltdowns about the kind of maybe mother or person she was, so that she could hoover new supply and source and have people pay a lot of attention. Codependency is a huge hallmark of any narcissistic personality. They latch on to relationships. She wanted to be rid of me and she was done and wanted to discard me, but she had to find something new to hook into. And I get it, because even after our relationship dissolved, I found myself kind of like trying to figure out how to latch, because I was codependent, not to her, but to other situations. And my angels were like, there's no latching here. We're not going to let you do this anymore. We're serious when we said this is done, because as an empath, there's the empath, the narcissist dynamic, right? And I'm so used to like being the sunlight and the wind beneath somebody's wings while they're shitting on me that I was like, is there a new person? No, not for me this time. Amen. I'm so grateful for it now. But then I was like, this is so not fair. She got some new codependencies. Okay, guys, you got to grow up. I had to grow up here. So she latched onto a new thing. They might speak modestly about these covert narcissists, their contributions, with an underlying goal of earning compliments and recognition, or they may offer a compliment in order to get one in return. So what she did, because she didn't really have much to speak about, she talked a lot about me. She kind of used me as bait. And that was one of the things that this covert narcissist did. This was a unique situation. Comment below if you've ever had that happen, where maybe your narc was using your achievements to kind of bring acclaim or fame to themselves. And that's what she did. When you're dealing with a covert narc, they will have a shy and withdrawn nature. This narcissism, covert narcissism, is more strongly linked to introversion than any other types of narcissism. And when I was dealing with some therapists that were helping me to understand what I was walking through, they gave me research about things called the Eeyore syndrome. So if you've watched Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore is a donkey or a mule on there that is always depressed, always sad, always like everything in life is terrible. That is exactly how this narcissist was in my life. I spent many years while she was going through a terrible marriage and depression and other real things. There are real things that happened. So it wasn't that she was making these things up. They were things happening in her life. But I was pulling her out and always trying to like edify her. And I realized that was my codependency. I needed to feel needed. When she hoovered the new source, she needed to feel needed. It was her turn to know what it's like to have someone suck you dry and drain you. So now she knows. Avoiding social interactions lowers the chance of exposure for covert narcissists, because they don't want to be exposed with their innermost feelings of inferiority, because it shatters their illusion of superiority. So they're deeply afraid of having their flaws and failures seen by others. Yeah, and the reason I was uncomfortable one of the things she screamed at me before it was over was, you make me feel like shit. And she never really talked to me that way. So I was like, oh, this is truly my exit. But what was in that was so much. My light made her feel bad. The fact that I knew who she was, and I knew that she was dark, and I knew that she was dealing with some lower vibrational entities, demonic energies, that she was dealing with some generational curses. But guys, heads up, 7-Up, we all have all of that stuff we're dealing with. But for a covert narc, for that to be seen, she punished me. That last week that I was there, one of the things I got was a really devaluing silent treatment. I'd gone up there for a medical procedure. I was there to get help. She had convinced me to come up there. Her office that she worked at dealt with my specific issues. And she was like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to do everything. I'm whatever. Here's what she did. Here's the healthcare by a covert narc. I might make a separate video about it, but healthcare by a covert narc was this. She made me wait outside for a few hours a couple hours, 2 specifically hours, while she did anything, got drunk on the phone, did drugs, cupcaked with her wife and promised her I'll never let her touch me, and then made an immediate covert narc beeline to get supply from me sexually as soon as I got into the house, as soon as she let me into the house. While I was there, she didn't do any of the cooking or cleaning. I did the cooking, okay? Because that's my energy, and I'm not complaining. She didn't ask me to do that. That's who I am. I bought groceries while I was on that 2-hour wait, while she would let me into her house like it was the club. I grocery shopped and bought food into her house because I knew it wouldn't be there when I got there. I knew knew that she wasn't really going to take care of me. Like, I knew what she told me. She talked a good game, but I also knew that what she really wanted, I didn't understand it till after, was to devalue me. She wanted that whole week to feel miserable. I had no car, which was my own situation I was dealing with at my time. That was of no fault of hers, but I was there. I was isolated by myself. I remember my mother saying to me, "Why are you going?" And my mom really liked this girl, truly did. And so it was like, she was, my mom was having premonitions. And when I came back and I was like, "Mom, it was horrible," she was like, "I had a feeling it would be. I don't know why, because you guys have never really had issues like this." And it was because I had suppressed all of those issues. What I will tell you is, she not only didn't take care of me, she left me for about 24 hours or so, where she decided not to speak to me because I held her accountable for some crappy behavior that she'd been doing for years in our relationship. So she punished me because I had said, "Hey, I love you, girl. What's up with this? Why are we doing this? All I've ever tried to do is love you, and you know that." But it was because I had seen through her. She couldn't stand that I had seen through her and called her on her BS, and she pretended as though it didn't happen. So just understand that that's what you're dealing with. They hate being exposed. Okay, so people with covert narcissism may also avoid social situations or relationships that lack clear benefits. They simultaneously feel superior and tend to distrust others. The reason she couldn't trust what I was doing in my life is because she's not trustworthy. She doesn't trust herself. She's a liar. So of course, everybody else around her would be a liar. So they manage this kind of distress because it's emotionally draining, and they try to manage it, but they leave little energy for developing meaningful relationships. The other hallmark here is that they have grandiose fantasies. People with covert narcissism generally spend more time thinking about their abilities and achievements than talking about them. They might seem smug or have an "I'll show you" attitude. They withdraw into fantasy. Now, she's a fire sign, so am I. So we love fantasy, and we created our own magical world like crazy people. And now I'm seeing the delusion of it all. I was there too, guys. I have to always tell my truth about myself. I was playing right into the shenanigans. So what they do is they spin their inner narrative into a world that's not equivalent to their reality, where they have an inflated importance, powers, or a specialness that is opposite of what their actual life is like. She fantasized that she was a queen, and in past lives, she very well may have been. As a metaphysician, I totally understand our past lives affect our future lives. I think I might have been a doctor, an herbalist, a medicine woman in my past lives. It's clearly coming out in this one. I think for her, she was definitely royalty and probably felt her plunked down into a wrong life. But covert narcissists and narcissists in general tend to feel that they are royalty, kings and queens, okay? So fantasies could involve, with a covert narc, being recognized for their talents and promoted at work, being admired for their attractiveness everywhere they go. This was her Achilles heel. She needed to feel like she was the most beautiful person in the room. Another shift that happened is that she is a Caucasian, I am African American. And I am plus size, y'all have seen me, okay? And she was like slim thick, so she was like, smaller than me for definite sure, right? That was a big point of pride with her. Even in the early days of us actually dating, I remember that being an issue. Like, she needed to be like the prettiest person in the room, and she always has had to be that. Is she actually, in actuality, the most gorgeous person in the world? Obviously, we know that there are magazines that rate that, so she's not on that magazine, so I would say no. Is she a pretty person? Of course. Is she an attractive person? Yes. Does she have a Jezebel spirit that she's also working with? Yes. Does that make that her more attractive? Indeed. She has charisma, guys. That's what I will say. And covert narcissists, they spend a lot of time pretending that they are not they don't want attention, but they want all the attention. She sucked up all the air in the room. It was so important for her to be admired everywhere she goes. She talked about it. It was the only thing she talked about. So she went somewhere and did something, then she would come back and be like, "Oh my gosh," and 17 people said da 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 da. That was a big thing. So when I started to receive attention, even in my plus size, even in my blackness, listen, black is beautiful, black is king, hello, hashtag Beyonce. So I have no issues about the fact of knowing who I am or how I carry myself, but she started to see it and started to make comments about it and started to notice people noticing. And I think that disrupted her in some way because she had to win. That's that. Feelings of depression or, excuse me, last one. They receive praise for saving people from a disaster. She connected with a codependent relationship where the person was a mess, and so she could feel important. Now, I considered her in some ways a divine masculine energy in my life, and I think what happened is, if we're going to get meta about it, she felt emasculated by the fact that I didn't really need her to fix anything for me. me, I fix things for her. So then she got someone that she could fix things for. So potato, potato. She got to live that life. Another thing covert narcissists deal with is feelings of depression, anxiety, and emptiness. So covert narcissism involves higher risk of co-occurring depression and anxiety than any other types of narcissism. This is the part where my heart bled for her because I know that she deals with depression and anxiety. All of the things she is that's terrible, I'm still an empath who sees a human who hurts. I don't want anything to do with her, and I know that she would cut my neck right now if she could see me, but I still know that she dealt with depression and anxiety. There are two major reasons for this. Fear of failure or exposure may contribute to anxiety. Frustration over idealized expectations not matching up with real life and the ability to get the needed appreciation from others can trigger feelings of resentment and depression. Feelings of emptiness and thoughts of suicide are also associated with covert narcissism. Okay? So, they have a tendency to hold grudges. If you're dealing with a covert narc, someone with covert narcissism will hold grudges for a long time. When they believe that someone's treated them unfairly, they will feel furious but say nothing in the moment. This is a key thing to understand. You do not know and will never know when you've offended a narc. Instead, they're more likely to wait for an ideal opportunity to make the other person look bad or get revenge in some way. The last week I was there was her revenge. Must have offended her in her crazy brain in some way, and she was pissed at me. Maybe pissed at me because I got married. Maybe pissed at me because I wasn't sleep with her every time she tried to sleep with me because she wasn't being a responsible adult that wanted to have a conversation even before I was married. Like, hey girl, let's sleep together. That's normal. We're both bisexual. Let's try that. And we'd been together before. So that was an interesting part to me. She was very upset that I wasn't giving in. Maybe she had some racial issues too that I felt were creeping in too. She felt like I should have been submitted to her. There was a lot of a hot mess going on there. But what I realized was her behavior in the last week. She punished me for things other people did, for other married women that rejected her. She used the same lines. She did the same exact things, and she was waiting for it. She wanted to get me back because she felt hurt that I didn't see how special she was or how magical her vagina was. Well, I didn't care about her vagina. I cared about her soul. And I might be one of the last people in her life that does. So the revenge is very subtle or passive aggressive. For example, they might start a rumor or sabotage the person at work. So in her work life, she hated people, told me about it all the time, and was always behind a lot of gossip, was always telling me who was what and who didn't do what, and was investigating. She had like a vicious need to investigate everybody and understand what everybody was doing and who was embezzling this. And this doctor, of course it was a black doctor, he's the cheapest and he's mean and whatever. I was like, surprise, in the South, of course, the black one is, yeah, he should not get any money. The rest of the doctors should get paid. It's not him. So she would always tell me all of these things and be in all the gossip, and also creating a lot of drama behind the scenes in friend groups because of the person that she chose to triangulate with, who she felt was more popular than her. And no one could be more popular than her, so she had to sleep with her and make sure that she was the most popular. Covert narcissism, guys. So she sabotaged me too. Even though I wasn't there, she started to spin things and talk about me in a bad way because it didn't no longer fit her narrative, because I wasn't giving her the supply that she needed. I wasn't kissing her butt anymore. And it wasn't that. I was busy working and creating my own energy. It's so funny. Prof, the rapper, has a line, "This is the beginning of a dynasty. You should be thinking of ways you can be nice to me." Instead of her being nice to me, because I was like, girl, I'm bringing you in. I'm like, it's whatever. We'll thrive together. Big Leo energy. She was hating. She was hated from the sidelines, guys. She started to kick me in the face emotionally. So they will sabotage things. They might also hold grudges against people who earn praise or recognition they think they're entitled to, such as a coworker who receives a well-deserved promotion. This is something that she absolutely did. She hated when anybody made more money than her. She knew exactly how much money everybody made. She knew who made an extra dollar more than her. She felt terrible about it. Now, here's where I didn't realize this would affect me. She also hated what was happening with me. Any success I had, and there were moments and lucid moments where she would come to me and say, like, I'm struggling that you get to work from home, or this is when she was not really fully connected with the lover that I think just sent her narcissism and her insanity into another stratosphere. But she was like a human and a friend, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I can like work with this. We can like manage it. But she started to have real grudges because she started to siphon my energy, my spiritual practices and everything. She didn't believe in them. She thought I was insane, and she didn't put in the work. She wasn't meditating, praying, ringing bowls, buying crystals. She just wasn't doing the stuff. But what what she would do is I would talk to her, because I'm a talker, can you tell? I would talk to her, I would share my information, my spiritual growth. She would take it back. She would not say like, oh, my friend, whatever. Like, she might have talked about me some, but the truth of the matter is she started to like have this persona. She even called me once, because she's not insane fully, and she called me once and she said that she was feeling guilty. I will never forget it. I was like walking into a Planet Fitness and she's like, I'm feeling guilty because I don't really even think that this is anything that I really believe in or whatever. And so then she let people get in her, it's a whole bunch of stuff, guys. But the point is that she knew that it wasn't her persona. She just decided like, this works for me. It makes me popular. It brings me the attention and I don't have to do any of the work. That was her favorite thing. She was like, woo, I won. These grudges can lead to bitterness and resentment and a desire for revenge, which she was taking out on me. Envy. People with NPD often envy people who have things they feel they deserve, including wealth, power, status. They also believe others envy them because they're special and superior. People with covert narcissism may not outwardly discuss these feelings of envy, but they might express bitterness or resentment when they don't get what they want or believe they deserve. She did outwardly discuss it. She had whole jealous rages, so that was real. Feelings of inadequacy. People with covert narcissism can't measure up to high standards they set for themselves. They may feel inadequate in response to this failure. So this feeling can trigger shame, anger, and a sense of powerlessness. They have self-serving empathy. This was interesting to me. Contrary to popular belief, they can show empathy, but they spend so much time trying to build up their self-esteem and establish their importance, it often gets in the way. So when you're dealing with a covert narcissist, they may seem to have empathy for others. That's what makes her insidious, because she would be like, oh, bless her heart, or I'm worried about this person. And sometimes I felt like it was real, right? They might seem willing to help others or take on extra work. Now, for her, one of her favorite like dating mechanisms was like, I'm going to go do something financial for you. Like, I'm going to pay a bill, or I'll run this to you, or I'm going to bring you a snack, or I'm going to make you lunch. Like, she did it to me. She did it to her ex-wife. She did it to her new wife. Like, this is her, like, she has an MO. So, right. So she will make herself available. I don't know if that's just a covert narcissistic trait. They want to be, well, it is true. They want to be seen as pillars in their community. They want to be seen as like altruistic and upstanding people. That is really important to them. So you might see them, okay, so yeah, they might be, they seem to be willing to help others out, take out extra work. You might see them performing an act of kindness or compassion. And that was her MO for like picking chicks up, but it was also her MO for like getting attention and garnering source and supply, such as giving money. Oh gosh, listen, they're already reading it for me. Such as giving money and food to someone sleeping on the street, or maybe helping a less fortunate counterpart. She felt more superior to the lover that she hoovered, right? She was like, she's a hot mess. Everything in her life is falling apart. I'm going to fix her. So she was like, she got to feel superior there, you know? That was the way. They might help someone in their family or something like that. She was way too selfish for that. She wasn't helping anybody in her family. But they generally do these things to win approval of others. If they don't receive praise or admiration for their sacrifice, they may feel bitter and resentful and make remarks about how people take advantage and don't appreciate them. So it's you know, the bottom line here is, we all have narcissistic traits, but not everybody is a covert narcissist. And if you're dealing with a covert narc, you feel like they're being cruel and you don't understand where the punishment's coming from, guys, it's there. Something is happening. Now, I pulled a few cards so that we could take a little deeper dive. So in front of you, we have behind the mask over here, and then we have hidden motivations, a consciousness of lack, and deception. These are all traits that you'll deal with. There's a mask. You often hear people talk about like ripping off the mask with covert narc or narcissism. That's why. What's behind the mask? Just so that we can talk about that. What's behind the mask is dark thoughts, okay? Hidden motivations. Hidden motivations come from fear of lack. They have a lack or poverty consciousness, which is next, right? So they have a lack or poverty consciousness, and that lack or poverty consciousness causes them to